For this video tutorial, we're going to be pinning and sewing on the elephant's arms. For this, you're going to need the arms, a needle, your pins and a pair of scissors. Now the pattern suggests around below the neck. So here's our neck, so about around below. Now you've got a couple of choices. You can either pin them straight, so they go down by your elephant's sides. Oh, his ear's gone a little bit wayward there. Or you can pin them slightly facing forwards. I quite like them slightly facing forward, so we're going to do that. So about a row below, and then tip them forward slightly. And then pop a couple of pins in to check position, to hold them in position. So we're going to pin the other one, getting it as absolutely similar as we can. We want it on the same round, a row below, and slightly facing forward. We want a very similar angle. We don't want one far more forward than the other. We want them as close as possible to get a symmetrical look. So what we'll do is have a look when they're pinned to see what we think. Does that look good? Look at that. Hello. You can see him starting to take shape now and come to life. Do they look even? That one looks a touch lower to me. Let's have a look. Facing forward a bit more. Look at them from the sides as well to make sure they're both quite level on the sides. So you want them at a similar angle and obviously a similar height. And also do it by eye as well. When you look at them, do they look even? Facing forward slightly. And that's why we don't stuff them too much as well, because if we stuff them too much, you end up with arms that stick out because there's so much sewing in them. And we don't want that. So that ear keeps going up a little bit. Now if it didn't, it was annoying. You could pop an extra couple of stitches in underneath just to pull it down. Look at that. It's maybe, yeah, a bit like Dumbo wanting to get up and fly. Right, so I'm quite happy with that position. So now I'm going to start sewing. I'm going to thread my needle with the string, the wool that's left from your arm. And we're just going to sew one on and then leave it to sew the other one on. So we're going to zoom in so we can get a closer look. So I'll start where my thread is. Move those ears out the way. So we're going to do a stitch on the body, very close by again, trying to get the thread caught on those. Now what I'm going to do here is I want my stitches to be invisible. So you can either go in and out like before, but I want that nice edging to be visible as well. I don't want to sew over it. So what I'm going to do is go down where I came up and then come up a bit further away. It's hard to come up very close to where you are with this method. So what I tend to do is up and down a few times, just trying to get all along. So we're not missing any. Go back down and back up again. Going in through the natural holes again. And then we've done this bit here, so I'm going to try and get a bit closer here. Move your elephant around the whole time so it's easier to work. So this way, you can't actually see the stitches and it's not sewing over that lovely edge at the top. We're just going down and then up. All different places. Make sure especially you get the edges. And at the edge, it might be an idea just to go over the top of the edge. You won't really see it if it's just a little stitch. So we're going up and down a few times just to make sure that's secure. So you can do the same method as before, but this way the stitches are more hidden on the arm. So we've done that. So now we're going to take that off, the pins, and then we're going to lift the arm up, and now we're going to sew underneath as well. So I'm just going to do a stitch on the arm and then a stitch on the body like we did before, because this is less visible. It's under the elephant's arm. So stitch there, and then we're going to do a stitch under the arm and then a stitch on the body to match. So we've sewn along the top and now we're sewing along underneath. So go around again if it's for a child, because again the arms is something that they will get pulled along by. Do it a couple of times, make sure it's nice and secure. Give it a good pull before you take your thread off to make sure it feels secure. If you've got a bit sticking up at one of the edges of the arms. If it's a little bit loose there, what I do is pop an extra stitch in. So I'm just going to go up there, look, just stitch that to make sure that's secure on the edge. And then I'm going to go down, come back up away again. I pulled it and checked it's nice and secure. Go back in through a hole and up again. I'll do that 3 or 4 times maybe for the arms, because they are the type of thing that gets dragged along a lot. So we'll do that a few times. So now I'm going to double check my other arm. You sometimes find that the pins will fall out a bit while you're sewing the other one because it's getting moved around. So I'll double check that I'm quite happy with the position of the other arm. Make sure it still looks level. And then I'm going to leave you to sew the other arm on, but you're going to do it in exactly the same way, no different. So if you can sew that one on. And then what we will do as well while we're on with this, I'll take that off just for now, if you sew yours on, and then we're going to sew on the tail. That's quite a quick and easy one. So the tail we're aiming for around here. Make sure it's central, just a little bit up, 1 centimetre perhaps above, between the legs. And I tend to put the thread at the bottom. That's just my way of doing it, so it's more out of view, but you can't really see much anyway, so don't worry if you don't want to do that. Now I'm going to pop up a couple of pins in. Again, have a look at it. Are we happy with the position? Have a look, is it in the middle? If it looks a bit high or low, just move it around until you're happy with it. So I'm quite happy with that. So we're just going to thread our needle again, excuse me. And then we are going to just sew around exactly the same as before. If there's a bit of a knot, so a little bit of a knot where you finished off, just go up and into the tail, just to pull it up, and that will just pull the knot more into the inside. So I'm going to do a little stitch on the body, followed by a little stitch on the tail, and then we're just going to go around the tail, and I'd suggest going around twice as well, just to be safe again. If your pins are getting in the way, you could take one out while you're working, but let's try and leave that in. And then gather every few stitches, just give it a pull up tight. Oops. So a little stitch on there, a stitch on here. I'm just going up through here like so. Like so. You see that? We're just doing a little stitch, and then we're going to pull it through. Do another one on the body, keeping close again. Then another one here. On the tail, gathering it up, just pulled it tighter there together, and we're nearly all the way around. So we'd maybe pop around again if we want to just make sure, doubly sure that it's nice and secure. Take our pins out, see what we think. Once you take your pins out, you get a better view of what it looks like. So let's have a look. Oh, look at that little tail. Right in the middle. Feels quite secure. I'll just pop an extra stitch or two and then we'll finish it off. So we'll just do another couple, make sure we've gone past where we started. Nice and secure, that feels nice and firm. So we're going to just go down and come up. It's a great way to finish off this. You can also do it with soft toys if you're sewing, but just be really careful. I tend to do it along the seam when I'm doing it with sewing, so it's just on the seam, because if you're doing little stitches and you've got a cotton fabric, it may be shareable. That's a whole other thing, isn't it, sewing? I forgot. Can you tell I do lots of different crafts? Right, so there we go. There's our little tail all sewn on. So now I'm just going to sew the other arm on, and then we'll come back and look at sewing the elephant's eyes and finishing off.